Hey guys, so in this video we will see what is currying in JavaScript. So let's go with a small definition of it, and then we will try to understand it in the simple terms. S- So let's try so let's first try to understand it with a simple definition. So when a function instead of taking all so let's try it so let's try to understand it with the help of a simple definition. So when a function instead of taking all arguments at one time takes the first one and return a new function that takes the second one and return a new function until takes the third one and so forth until all arguments have been fulfilled. So currying is majorly a concept. So currying is currying is more of a concept of functional programming in which we pass the arguments to a function, and instead of returning a result it returns us a series of function as a response, and then until currying is a concept of functional programming in which instead of taking all arguments at a one time in a function call, it takes a series of arguments as a series of function and returns us the function until its request is fulfilled by all the arguments. So let's try to understand it with the simple example. So let's say we have a function which takes a, B, C, D, and then it return the sum of A, B, C, and D. Now let's try to print it. Sum 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we try to sum all these numbers, then we will get 5, 4, 9, 3, 12, 14. So it should print 14 as a result. Yes. So this is the simple definition of a function. Now let's try to curry it with the functional programming concept. So now let's try to transform it with the help of curry. So let's say we have a function currying sum. Now it will take the first argument and now it will return us a function which will take second argument. Now it will return us another function which will take third argument, and now it will return us a new function which will take fourth argument, and now its requirement of taking all the four arguments are fulfilled. Now it will now it will return us a sum of all these values A, B, C, and D. Now let's try to print the same function. Let's see what we get. Instead of calling the sum, we will call now curried. So let's try to understand it first. So when we call this currying sum with a series of input, now let's comment the previous one and now try to print it out. Okay, so we are getting a function as a result which is taking b as an input and then returning a function c and then returning a function which takes d as an input. So why we are getting this kind of uh, output? Let's try to understand it. So we are passing these four values as a, so we are calling current sum, and this value will be passed to this function. Now this function is returning another function. Now let's try to change it like this: 2 3 and 4 5. Now let's try to print the same values. Okay, so now we are getting the 14 as a result, which is our expected result. Now let's try to understand what we are doing there. So we are passing 2 as an input to this function. A will become 2, and now we are getting a new function as a response or return value of this function. In that function we are passing 3 as an input, and now this 3 is returning us a new function which is taking or asking us a new input. So we are passing 4 as an input to this function which return us another function which asks for the d as an input. We are passing 5 as d, so d will become 5. Now our so now the request is fulfilled. So it this function will return the sum of all a plus b plus c plus d, which we are getting 14. So this is what we are trying to achieve with the current. So in next video we will try to solve some interview based question. So in next video we will try to solve some current based questions which are mostly asked in the interviews.